You just got a sewing machine, you've picked out that perfect pattern and material to start that new costume for your character. And then anxiety sets in because you have no idea what half of these symbols mean and what the heck they're talking about in the instructions. You are about ready to just give up on the whole idea. Don't. It's okay. This video, we are going to demystify sewing patterns. Hi, I'm Mackenzie Jameson. Welcome to Thrift Store LARPer. I've had quite a few people ask me to go through sewing patterns from how to read the envelope, how to read the instructions, what do the symbols mean, how to lay out a pattern. So that's what we're going to do today. Start with the right sewing pattern for your skill. I am always encouraging people to kind of push their limits on their skills and what they're able to do. And going a little bit over your head is great. Just don't go so over your head that you get overwhelmed and just want to give up. Start with something that challenges you, if you are game for being challenged, or work with what you're comfortable. I have to say, Butterick knows what's up. They have been, for years, coming out with some awesome accessories for LARP. And if you want another video about what my favorite sewing patterns are for LARP, let me know in the comments. A lot of patterns will let you know what level of difficulty it is on the envelope. So I am going to use this one as an example because it's pretty new and it's a doublet. So this is the pattern number. If you ever want to try to find this pattern again, you usually look up the brand and then this pattern number. This is also how a lot of people catalog their collection if you have a lot of patterns. Watch out for pattern sizing because sometimes different sizes come in different envelopes. There'll be a range on some of them from like 6 to 12, and then another envelope will be a bigger size from 12 to 22, and sizes don't always correspond with clothing sizes as we know it. So you will be able to check the back of the envelope and find your measurements and the corresponding size. The sizing sometimes is extra small through extra large. Other times, let me see if I can find an example. Other times, if it's like a one size fit all, it will have something like this. Let's say you have a chest of like 47, and let's say your waist is 38. Which pattern should you use? I would cut the extra large size. Always go with the pattern size that is your largest measurement. The measurements of the final garment's going to be compare those with what your measurements are going to be. I mean, this one says that the 47 chest, so that actually seems like it's going to be possibly run a little bit big. Usually I find that simplicity patterns do need a little bit of tailoring. I would still err on the side of go with the larger pattern for your larger measurements. Other big thing to pay attention to while you buy your pattern, when you're going and finding your fabrics, pay attention to the suggested fabrics that are listed at the top here. This will tell you, like for the shirt, it says use lighter fabrics like gauze or shirting or crinkled crepe. But with the doublet, it's saying use thicker materials like home decor and upholstery. Think of patterns like a recipe, and this is your ingredients at the top. This is telling you all the ingredients that you are going to need to make this costume. We're going to focus on B. It's saying here, down here, how much fabric do you need? Right here it says with the doublet costume, if the fabric comes in different sizes, a lot of times, most common 54 inches. It can be up to 60. A lot of your upholstery fabrics are 60 wide. And in that case, 60 wide, you would need, so they're suggesting if you're going with, say, size extra large, that you need a 1 yard and 1 3/4 yard. Round it up to 2 yards, or even an extra yard, just in case you might screw up and need to cut something out again. Always round up. Don't forget your lining. Lining comes usually in 45 inches wide, and their suggested is 1.5 yards. I would round to 2, possibly 3. Interfacing, don't skip the interfacing. Interfacing is what gives the garment that extra body and stability. You will need interfacing. And this is suggesting how much interfacing you're going to need, how much trim you're going to need. Inside this is a pamphlet, these are your instructions. This is the pattern as it comes before you cut it out. Say if we are going to make pattern B, this is going to show you what all the pattern pieces look like. For pattern B, to keep track of things, this is one of the things I like to do. Okay? A lot of times what I'll do is I'll go back and say, for future reference, I'm going to be making the extra large. So we know that I'm going to cut this pattern to large. And I like highlighting how much I need. So that's what I like to do. Let's say we're doing that. Okay, and circle B. If I make something else, sometimes I'll put that in another color. We want pants. Okay, doublet B. Plume. Yeah, it says B. B. We're not making the shirt. We can skip that. Doublet, and we should be covered on all that. Anything say A or B? Nope, we're good. So it looks like back and the flange, those are being shared. So we want 5 and 6 as well. On the pattern, right here. They love you. They want to show you what everything means. Symbols, grain line. So these arrows right here, that corresponds with the same arrows right here. You will also see those on the pattern. We will show you that later. Right here, place solid line on fold. If you ever see an arrow that looks like this, that means put that part of the pattern on a fold. Notches are super important. There are different ways to do notches. I will cover that. Dots, things like dots, mark those. Use your tailor's chalk and mark those. Cutting lines, I will show you there are different cutting lines for different sizes. Lengthen or shorten. Once you get to know these symbols, it's not like you pick up another brand that it's going to change. It's not, you're good. And if it does, they usually have a key about what things mean. Seam allowance. This one is a 5/8 inch seam allowance. A lot of sewing machines are kind enough to have those markings on the sewing machine. If not, get used to visually seeing what that looks like. A double front interfacing, we want 2, because they don't mark A or B. A, B placed there, double front, A. Okay, we don't care about the shirts. Okay. This is showing you how to fold the material. It looks like they want you to fold it with the salvages touching each other. That's usually the edge of the fabric where it was done weaving, not where they cut it, but where the weave is done. This gives you a suggested way to lay out all your pattern pieces. Something to pay close attention to here, they don't do it in the doublet, but they do it Let's see, doublet and hat lining. So right here, see how some of these are a little more shaded? I will even help you out here and show the shading a little bit more. So this one's shaded a little bit, this one's shaded a little bit. What that means is they want you to put the printed side down, and they actually cover that right here. So hopefully you can see right there, it's a little darker than this box. So if you can't quite tell, go ahead and make yourself a little mark right there. Shade it in with pencil, whatever helps you. So right here, this is pattern side up because it is clear. This is pattern side down because it is shaded. They do give, some patterns will give you special sewing instructions. Like if the layout shows a piece extended past the fold, cut out all the pieces except that piece that extends. Open fabric to a single thickness. Cut the extending piece right side fabric in the position shown. Before cutting, you want to make sure that your material has been pre-washed. A lot of times these aren't pre-shrunk. So like you can make your garment and it ends up being smaller after you washed it because whoops, you didn't pre-shrink the material, or it ends up shrinking in a really weird way and fitting weird later. It says after cutting, transfer markings to the wrong side of fabric before removing the pattern. I tend to like doing this before I pin everything down. I kind of do this, I like doing this while it's kind of in between. I sometimes do this while I'm cutting out, so it just depends on what you like. Snipping the edge of fabric mark and notches will cover that. There are two different ways to do it. Some people prefer to cut with the marks out, the notches out. Some people like to do it within. Just depends on your style. This is one of those instances where they are going to reference doublet A a lot. So they decided to save some space here and say, hey, look, you're doing the same technique. Go back and see step 5 in doublet A. I know it's a lot of back and forth, but they're saving paper by doing this. So I know it's a pain in the butt, but it's worth it. Sewing directions. They are going to show you sewing directions. Fabric key. They provide a fabric key. Right side of the fabric is going to be tiny little dots. Wrong side of the fabric, so that's the underside of the fabric, as if you were, the costume was inside out. That's going to be a totally clear line drawing. Interfacing always has the hash. Lining is always big dots. So, for instance, that is lining. This shows the lining. Right there, this clear bit, that is showing what is the underside, the inside out part of a fabric. So what you're seeing here is the right side of the fabric. Here's an example of a piece with the interfacing. If they want you to gather, this is what gathering usually looks like. I'm not going to cover ways to gather. There are tons of videos out there in different styles of gathering. I highly recommend looking up gathering and practice gathering on scrap pieces of material. Here they are showing where the trim goes on. So for step 1, there's step 1. Step 2, step 2. I usually like to cut out my patterns before I iron them. I iron after. So we are working with the extra large. This will show you all the lines on the extra large. If you were to use your large, you would go up to here and cut up along here and try to follow those lines. It's kind of nice. At this point, I always like to leave a little extra room just to. So we're following extra large through here. All right, don't notch these yet. Don't notch yet. My opinion. This can get a little hairy right here. Here, extra large. This is very crucial to make sure you are paying attention to what line is what. You don't want to accidentally go extra large. Oh my god, nope, this is the small. Whoops. Let's look at this pattern. It has all the lovely markings. This arrow here, this is your grain line. This is the number of the pattern piece that corresponds in that little list of what you need. Pay attention to this. It is saying cut 2 of the fabric and 2 of the lining. What you'll see here, this little line here, is where the waist, your natural waist, should be when this is done. What are these little markings right here? What are these? You're wondering, probably wondering, what are these? So it's going to show extra large here. You're going to want to mark that. Extra large here. You're going to want to mark that on with tailor's chalk. Again, tailor's chalk. This is where a piece, there will be a corresponding piece that lines up with that. That is key. You are going to want these markings to line up those pieces and pin them there, and then you can sew them in the right place. These dotted lines here on this piece, in the instructions, it shows this is where your trim is going to be. This is, so you pre-place the trim here, pin it down, and you sew it along that. 2 number 5s. What do you do with 2 number 5s? If you look closely, pay attention, there is the small, extra small through medium version. That's what this is. And they decided to print the larger sizes as a separate piece here. So this is the back, this is for extra large and large. So this is the one we want to cut out. We don't care about this one for now. We want this one. Put your setting to one of the lower, like wool or silk. You could go as high, I've done as high as cotton, and it's okay, it hasn't burned if you're real quick. And then set your steam to 0 because you don't want that moisture to get into your paper and then it ends up curling up all the time. This one, it's got a little curl here, a little fold here, that's no good. We need to work with flat pieces. When marking your patterns, you're going to want to use tailor's chalk. That comes in several forms. They are in usually 2 different colors. One for dark material, which you would normally use something like white. They also come in this one's quite used. This is also tailor's chalk. They start out looking like that. This is if you have a light piece of material. This one's probably, yeah, this one actually shows up on this material pretty well. If you can see that at all. But what happens is later you can dust that off or take a damp cloth and it comes off. I highly recommend getting this kind of paper when working with patterns. What this is, it's a transferring marking paper. And it comes in many different colors, so depending on what color you're working with, what color fabric you're working with, you can have a contrasting color that will stand out for your markings. And what happens is you put this in between the fabric and you press using some kind of implement that's kind of dull but will make your markings. This rotary tool here looks like a spur. That's a lot of times we'll use that. Hopefully that made it. So now you can see right here a very faint line of where your trim will need to go. So then after that, what you do is you move it in between, and you just do it for every little dotted line. That is an indicator of where your trim should go. If you don't have transfer paper, you can do this. It's not quite as accurate, but it's doable. It means that you have to do one side, cut it out, turn it around, flip this pattern over to match the other side, and then do this over again. But what you could do is where the line is, it's not quite as accurate, but it will get you by. I am lining up the ruler up against where that line is. Yep, and then peeling this back, and then marking. This is, you can do this with pretty straight lines. I'm gonna check my work. It's a little, yeah, okay. It is lining up. So here is our extra large marker right here. What we want to do, one way to do it, it's not always the most accurate, is I like to fold back the piece like halfway and mark. That's not marking very well. A lot of times these don't mark very well. This will probably show up better. Yeah, that's gonna show up. That's gonna show up a lot better. You can see that. That's a spot. Different styles of notching. Some people like to notch all the way in, like this. Sometimes where that's good is where it's on a curve and you have to notch your fabric anyway in order to let around like armholes, anywhere there's a curve. A lot of times you want to notch your fabric, which is just taking scissors and cutting along so that basically the material can like span out. And another way of notching is some people like to preserve their patterns or have a little more of a visual cue. They will notch outwards. So then they'll have like 3 little triangles pointing out. Some people like to be very subtle with their notches, and they just do a single slash like that. If you can find it, whichever way which works for you, the full triangle in, the full triangle out, or the very, very subtle, sometimes hard to find, little slash. So those are different ways to mark your notches for where you need to line up your pieces. So what I always like to do is when you cut everything out and you're sewing everything together, I will always match up my notch. I will pin at the notch and then work my way out on pinning and then sew, and there you go. I'm showing you why we line up all of the dots with the pattern versus with the material cut out, because I want to show you how to recognize these things on patterns and why they're important. It's always a good idea to give yourself a little run through of how it's all going to come together using the pattern and looking at where the pieces fit together before you start working. A and B both use this doublet flange, but yeah, this is doublet. It doesn't say that it's specifically for A or for B. So we are all good with this. So if this was like view A, you'd be, oh, because they use the same front and back, I forgot. So this would otherwise line up here. But since we are working with B, that would line up there. And then on the other side, you have the same thing. And don't waste the material and time cutting something like this out. Watch out for pieces that are guides. This is just a guide for the eyelets. So this is just a piece that after the garment is done and you're ready to put your eyelets in, you lay this where the top collar part is, you line that up with the center, and then you mark your eyelet. You have all these pattern pieces and you're trying to fit it back inside the envelope, and it's gonna be all floofy. One of the things I like doing is make sure that it's around the size, that needs to be folded in a little bit, around the size of the pattern envelope. Doesn't have to be perfect, but then what I do is I press. So what I do is I press my patterns after I've used them. It flattens them out. It helps them go back into the envelope with a little more ease. All this will fit back in here a little better. Now it's not so bulky. There we go. I hope this video makes sewing patterns a little less scary for you now. If you have any more questions about sewing patterns, do put them down below in the comments and I will try to answer them for you. If you are new here, hello. Again, I'm Mackenzie Jameson. Hit that subscribe and the bell. It'll let you know when the next video is out. And I am on social media a little bit, Instagram. Right now I'm more active on my Hey Mackenzie J than Thrift Store LARPer because I can't go out to thrift stores right now for obvious reasons. But I do have a backlog of thrift store finds, but I kind of just find it a little weird right now to be posting thrift store finds when we can't go to thrift stores. I want to thank all my regular viewers and my Patreon supporters for all your support and spirit right now, as I am not collecting any kind of monetary support. I would prefer that you put that money towards supporting positive causes for change, and stay safe out there. And I will see you guys next time. Oh, the best way for you to help this channel instead right now is to share these videos. So anyway, share, like, all that stuff, and I will see you. Bye.